This is Brock Lesnar, year 2000 NCAA champion, currently wrestling for Ohio Valley Wrestling. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing really good. I guess just to give everyone a little bit of background on you, you wrestled at University of Minnesota, and I think took second in the NCAAs in '99, and you won it in 2000.
Yep.
And when you were when you graduated from, in fact, I should even go back. When you were a junior in college, that was the first I had heard about. Brock Lesnar would make a great pro wrestling prospect. I guess it's probably because of the physique, And when were you first approached, and what made, I guess you actually talked with both WWF and WCW before going WWF. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I was approached in about January of 1999 by Gerald Briscoe and then also Jim Ross. And they just approached me, and they knew that I had another year of eligibility left in wrestling. They just wanted to know that they wanted to let me know that they were interested in me, and that they would be contacting me in the near future. And I had another year left, so I told them that I wasn't available for another year and a half, and even after that, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet. If I wanted to go wrestle and try to make the Olympic team, and so on and so forth. So. But they just told me that they called me every now and then and reminded me that they were still interested in me and wanted to sign me on a deal and stuff. And I was just weighing my options and waiting to finish school, so I had something to fall back on. My parents always said that I need to finish my college degree, and which I did, and so.
And were you a big fan growing up?
I actually, I never watched a lot of professional wrestling, because I grew up on the farm in South Dakota, and we just didn't have a lot of time for it. I didn't have the time for TV, as a matter of fact. So until I got to college, in '96 is when I really started watching professional wrestling.
And what were your? So I assume you were a fan of it, because we had like Kurt Angle on. He's talking about a lot of the amateur guys, they look down on pro wrestling. Some of them don't, but most of them do, so, Yeah,
a lot of, in my wrestling room at the University of Minnesota, professional wrestling was not very admired, it was something that, it's just the amateur attitude, because most of the professional wrestlers, were never amateur wrestlers, and except for Kurt Angle, and there's a few, I don't even know, maybe if Dr. Death maybe was one, and Vern Gagne, maybe just a handful of guys were amateur wrestlers or whatever, and so it was just something that, I guess it was the amateur attitude, those guys, that's not wrestling, because in the amateur eyes, there's so much, and now at me, only about 7 months into professional wrestling, it takes a lot of skill and hard work and so on and so forth. And me as an amateur wrestler, we put so much time into, and we get so less respect for our sport in amateur. I think that the public, in the public eye, the fake wrestling got more attention than the real wrestling, and I think that's why a lot of amateurs had a bad attitude towards it.
Mm-hmm. Now, how is mentally, because when you go from the amateur world to the professional world, you're going from a world where the worst possible thing is to lose to a world where if you let losing bother you, you'll drive yourself crazy because it's kind of immaterial. Were you able to switch it on off? Because a lot of athletes, good athletes, that losing thing, it's real hard for them to accept, but in pro wrestling you just kind of have to.
Yeah, I guess when I hung my singlet up and, threw my shoes in the closet, I was retired. I gave up the sport of wrestling as an amateur wrestler, and it's just like being in the business world, so you're going to win and you're going to lose someone, in business or whatever, So to me it's, I have no problem putting somebody over, I have no problem with that at all. It's just, I get paid the same either way, so it doesn't bother me, And I guess it's something that hasn't affected me yet, and I don't really think that it will. You know?
How would you compare the amateur wrestling training with the pro wrestling training?
Repeat the question. I didn't hear you.
How would you compare the amateur wrestling training with your pro wrestling training?
I would say that the training in the amateur level is very, very demanding, and also so is the professional level on your body, but mentally and physically, and I mean, we practice 3 to 4 times a day, whether it was running, lifting, drilling, wrestling. It's very, very demanding on the body. I mean, it's something that it's totally different than any other sport, because by the time you put it this way, you go through the NCAA tournament and you feel like that by the 3rd day of wrestling, you just want to fall over and die, because I mean it's so vigorous. I mean, it's just demanding on your body and mentally drain yourself. And most of wrestling, amateur wrestling, is about 80% mental. You can go out and have yourself beat before you even step on the mat. It's a mental game, and it's kind of like playing chess, but it's so physical and very demanding. I mean, a lot of guys, unless you're a very good athlete, I started amateur wrestling when I was in kindergarten, and it took me 19 years to become an NCAA champion, and I was never even a state champion in high school, so it took me a long time to actually excel at the sport, So I mean, and to the same too as professional wrestling, granted I'm very athletic and I think that I move very well in the ring and stuff, but this is totally different. I mean, this is you got to put psychology into things. You got to, on your ring awareness. You got to understand. Everybody's got to be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this becoming a professional wrestler has been very demanding on me also. So I'm saying that both sports back to back is very different for me, and has been what I expected it to be and what it is totally two different things. I thought I had no idea it'd be like this. I had no clue, and I'm enjoying every day of it.
Now, in your senior year, or at what point in your life, you're going through amateur wrestling, and I mean, there's the chance, it's the year 2000, so it's Olympic year. There are a lot of the guys, going for the Olympic team. I mean, you're not a shoo-in for the Olympic team, but certainly you would have been in the hunt.
Yeah.
When did you make the decision that, I'm not going to go to the Olympics, I'm going to go right to pro wrestling? It was just that the NCAA tournament was just so draining, and then that was like, okay, that's it? And when did you like at what point did you make the decision I'm going into pro wrestling after the season's over?
I think once I achieved the ultimate goal in my life, which was being a national champion, I think that pretty much decided it for me. If I would have ended up second place at the NCAA tournament, I would probably be wrestling still, because there would be an empty spot in my life where I needed to fill. If I would have ended up second place, I would definitely be in Minneapolis training for the U.S. Olympic team. But I think once I won that tournament, it was like a big weight was lifted off of me, and I didn't care. I could care less about even putting my wrestling shoes back on ever again.
Wow.
Because it was just so draining. I mean, it was that my senior year at the University of Minnesota was due to the media and the hype and just how Jay Robinson, my head coach, just built me up to be somebody that I tried to be, and I very well played the part very well. They built me up to this unstoppable machine, and the media in Minneapolis just kind of caught on to it, and before you knew it, I had my own radio show in Minneapolis, and before I knew it, I was in the newspaper, and Lesnar leads the University of Minnesota, this, that, and the other thing, and before you knew it, I had mentioned something about football, that I was going to, I wanted to play football because I had another year of eligibility left, and then, once the word football got out there, the media it just started snowballing, and then they caught that the WWF was interested in me, and then they caught that WCW was interested in me, but finally, come about a month before the NCAA tournament, I told Jay Robinson, I can't handle this anymore. If I'm going to win this tournament, I need to be left alone. And which finally we cut off all the media, my radio show, everything, and it just finally came down to where nothing was more important to me than winning the NCAA tournament. And I'm glad that I look back, and I think that was the right decision that I made and that Jay made for me.
I guess you're probably feeling really good about this decision as well right now, because when you were done with college, you had offers from both WWF and WCW. And what made you choose WWF?
I think just the professionalism of when I went to meet with Jim and Vince, and just I wanted to be with a top-notch business, because I'd always been surrounded by. I always tried to surround myself with, to fly with the Eagles. I always wanted to be around people that always had big goals, and that's why I chose the University of Minnesota also, is because they were building a destiny, and just as Vince McMahon is, I think, with him buying out WCW and everything, which I had no idea at the time, but just the nice people and the professionalism and that's probably one of the biggest things that I felt. I felt at home with them guys.
Who'd you talk with in WCW?
I talked with Eric Bischoff and mostly him, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Paul Orndorff also.
What as far as were you following the NCAAs this year, and that Minnesota ended up winning the national championship?
Yeah.
You followed it pretty close?
Yep. Yeah. I'm very good friends with all those guys on the team yet, and I followed them match by match as much as I could, and I was disgusted with myself that I couldn't have been there, but due to I'm here now, and I'm in the real world, so it was hard for me to get back, and I wish I could have attended that, but it was impossible for me. But yeah, having 10 All-Americans for the first time ever in NCAA Division I wrestling tournament. The University of Minnesota did a fine job of pulling it off.
What do some of your friends and former teammates have to say about you going into pro wrestling?
Oh, they're excited. Pretty much everybody that I know was very supportive of me. I mean, because most of them are fans of it, and most of them are excited to hopefully to someday see me on TV. And I had lots of support.
Now I want to talk a little bit about Shelton Benjamin, who's your tag team partner, yeah. And also he was your coach at Minnesota, right?
Yeah, he wrestled at the University of Minnesota. He was a 2-time All-American for the University of Minnesota. I was recruited after him. I think his last year was in '98, and then I came, and then he was a grad assistant in '99, and also some in 2000. He was a graduate assistant coach there, and did lots of amateur wrestling. I've known Shelton in the amateur ranks for probably ever since 1996. So I'd known of him, but we'd never actually wrestled in a competitive match. It was just kind of ironic how we ended up on the same team. It was, but yeah, we trained together for 2.5 years in the amateur ranks. So.
Now, in Ohio Valley, who are the guys? Who are the guys that you have really learned from, as far as some of the guys that have been there for a long time, and what type of stuff are you trying to pick up from different guys that are there right now?
Danny Davis has been a very, very big help to me, and I think just also Jim Cornette, psychology-wise, and trying to learn everything. I try to take as much advice as I can from everybody, and try to mold it in and try to make it make sense in my mind, And everybody, I would say, like the Nick Densmores and the Flash Flanagans here at Ohio Valley Wrestling are some of the guys that I like to watch, and if I can learn from them, they're very they can be entertaining, and they've been around here for 4 or 5 years, and so they know pretty much how to work around here, and I think those guys have been a big help to me.
Wow, how was working on the January 30th show? Because you've been wrestling As far as like the professional, before, relatively small crowds, and then all of a sudden you're out there in front of over 5,000 people. You're on the same show with Steve Austin, Jim Ross is there.
Yeah.
You did the shooting star press in like one of the first matches on the show, and kind of like nobody was really. I don't know if people were expecting that. I'm sure the fans were not from someone of your size. What was what was your feelings before that show?
I was very excited for that show. We put a lot of time into that show, and I just wanted to show Jim Ross and those guys that I'm trying my damnedest to become a professional wrestler, and I wanted to show also Jim Cornette and Danny Davis that I'm very capable and of doing whatever they want me to do, so. But I was very excited for the show, and me and Shelton, I think, being very green and stuff, we worked together very well, and I think we had an exciting, great first tag match of the night, and we got a big pop, we got big pops, and it was very exciting. Shelton's very athletic, and me being almost 300 pounds, and I think we pretty much we entertained. I hope so.
Has anybody from the WWF talked to you about a possible time frame for moving up, or have they not even mentioned that yet?
I don't know. I'm just right now. I'm just trying to learn every single day, and with them making some cuts and stuff down here now, and I'm not even sure. I don't know. I'm just doing what I'm told, and I'm not even close to being ready. I wouldn't assume that they'd want to bring me up, if I'm not ready. So, and me personally, I'm not ready. I need a good, 6 or 8 more months, or even more than that. So, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to spend the time to become the best. I put 19 years in to become a NCAA Division I champion, and I know that for me to step in and even try to be a WWF champion, it's going to take a lot longer than a year, unless you're a Kurt Angle, So I'm very satisfied for where I'm at right now, but I'm not saying that I don't set my goals higher than I should, because that is my goal to become a WWF champion. But in retrospect and in reality, I'm very happy and I'm learning, and that's all I can ask for right now.
In the amateur thing, one thing that you mentioned earlier, your junior year in college, you were second in the NCAAs. A couple of years earlier, as a senior in high school, you were not even state champion. What happened? Was there a year or a point where all of a sudden in your mind you go, hey, I can beat anybody, or a year? I mean, what happened in that interim?
What was the turning point?
Yeah, it was a turning point.
I think it's a maturity level thing. I think in high school I was a late bloomer. When I graduated, when I was a senior in high school, I was maybe 6 feet tall, and I was lucky if I weighed 200 pounds. And then I was wrestling up against guys that were very more mature than me. So I didn't really have that chance to excel and become the person that I was supposed to be until 2 or 3 years later down the road. It just took me I consider myself a late bloomer, So by the time I was at my peak, I was weighing 275 pounds, and I grew 4 inches taller. I think it was a maturity thing, and I think as I spent more time in the weight room and spent more time surrounded by great people, like the people at the University of Minnesota and most of my trainers and coaches, they made me believe in myself, and I think it was a confidence thing. I think the turning point for me was probably my freshman year at junior college, when I had got beaten by this kid in the semifinals who couldn't hardly chew gum and tie his shoes at the same time. I was so disgusted with myself that I had just gotten beat by this guy that looks like a marshmallow, and here I had spent so many hours in the gym and so many hours running, and this guy catches me, and beats me out of, a fluke, So I think that was probably my turning point. I woke up the next day and I was like, you know what? It's time for me to get serious. It's time for, things to change. And I think that was probably my turning point right there.
Did you ever meet
I'm not asking this because you said marshmallow, but what were your thoughts on Gardner versus...
Rulon Gardner and Alexander Karelin. What were you...
Yeah.
I'm not a big Greco-Roman fan. I never have been a big Greco fan, and I think it's a easy way out of wrestling. I think it's just a push and shove match. I've always hated stallers, people that hold back and don't shoot, or who just slide by. I hate that style of wrestling. And for Rulon Gardner to beat Karelin, in my eyes, I was happy for him, but at the same time, it was kind of disgusting at the same time because, here you got a guy that was never an NCAA champion, or just somebody that just doesn't look to play the part, and it doesn't have to be. That just goes to show that in Greco-Roman, you don't have to look like the Karelin to beat the Karelin, Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it was kind of disgusting and happy for him at the same time, but in retrospect and looking back, Karelin never should have been there, Karelin was past his time anyway, and I think when it comes to Olympic level wrestling, politics play a big part in who's going to win and who's making it to the finals. I think that has a big part in it because the referees are very political.
Really?
It's. I think that the reffing system in the Olympic levels of wrestling, in Greco-Roman and in freestyle, because Russia is such a strong wrestling country that and Karelin was built to be this person that the Frankenstein of wrestling, the unstoppable,
the creation.
It was. I don't know. I'm happy for Rulon and I'm happy for him and everything like that, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not a fan of Greco-Roman and I don't think that match should have never even taken place.
Did you ever consider no holds barred fighting with your size and everything like that?
Yes, I did, and I trained between my sophomore year and junior year because I spent some time in California. And I spent some time doing some submission fighting and stuff like that. But I was gonna attend a tournament in Reno actually that summer, but it would it was gonna mess with my eligibility for wrestling, so I couldn't join it and be a part of it. So I just by the time when I got out of college, it was time for there was really no money in it, and I didn't see the a good idea of me going out and and either getting beat up or beating somebody up for, $1,200 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So,
who did you train with?
I trained I went down to the Lions Den. I spent, actually I went down there, and that's actually what turned me on to the wrestling was Ken Shamrock and Frank, in California. I stopped by the Lions Den one day, and I never trained there, but that's what got me into it. And then I trained in Lassen, California. There was just a submission little school there, and I never really trained with any top athletes, but I just spent some time with a submission specialist, and and he kind of got me into it a little bit. But I never really had a heck of a lot of time because I was taking summer school and this, that, and the other, so it just kind of faded away.
Did you ever bump into Vern Gagne in Minnesota?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Oh really?
Vern is a big sponsor of the University of Minnesota, and he's a big fan of it. And I met Vern.
Did he give you any advice as far as going into pro or what to look out for or anything? Because I mean, he did it for forever and he promoted it, so he knows all the good and bad sides. Believe me.
Yep. Yeah. I spent a lot of time with Vern. I spent a lot of time on the phone with him and a lot of time at his house and talking to him and he gave me a lot of advice and I spent a lot of time with this was before I even signed with anybody, with Kurt Hennig and Brad Rangens, talking with those guys. And I don't know if the names Wayne Bloom and those guys.
I remember them.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time talking to those guys and they were a lot of help to me.
Did they ever try to hook you up with Japan wrestling? Because a a college wrestler might have an easy. It's an easier transition to Japan because they think they respect that reality more, whereas American, it's more entertainment oriented.
Yeah, Brad, who works for New Japan, Brad Rangan's, actually, I had a visit with Antonio Inoki in Minneapolis. Inoki came over to visit with me and stuff. So, but I just wanted to stay in the States. And
yeah, because actually you're the kind of an athlete that they would love. I mean, basically because of what the Japanese like from foreigners plus the credentials.
Sure.
You know, I mean you're kind of tailor-made in a lot of ways for what Inoki's vision of pro wrestling, which is a very different vision than other people's.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure I understand it sometimes, but
I didn't even know who Inoki was when I had been training with Brad for probably 3 weeks out at Brad's house, Brad Rangan's, and I didn't even know he had this meeting set up for me. Brad knew that I was going to meet with the WWF office, and so Brad, being the guy that he is, he didn't want to force anything on me, but he just told me that the New Japan office was coming and they wanted to meet with me. And I had no clue who Antonio Inoki was, and Brad put me in the ring with him, and we started shooting on each other. And Brad was, it was almost comical, and I had no idea who he was. And Brad was just in the back of his mind, playing a joke on me, and so me and Inoki wrestled for about an hour and a half straight,
really?
Just doing submission stuff and trying to make each other, pin each other and submit, and it was kind of comical. And then at the end, Brad informed me on who he was and what was going on, and so yeah, he played a pretty big rib on me. So.
What was your thoughts of being in there? Because, Inoki's like almost 60 years old, although he's in great shape for his age.
He's in excellent shape. Yeah, he's a machine, man. I tell you, it was just, now I look back and it'll be one of those things where 20 years from now I'll look back and just laugh at it, because it was so comical, and I had no clue. Here I am, this college wrestler, had no idea who Antonio Inoki was, so.
20 years from now, you may be wrestling him.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I think he's done wrestling. But.
And got a couple of emails. We're going to get to the phone calls right after this. This is from Rick Baker, who goes, have you ever met Kurt Angle or Lou Thesz?
I've met Kurt Angle, but I've never met Lou Thesz before. And Kurt, I think I've met Kurt in amateur. I went to one of his camps, like back in '92. It was quite like '93. That was the first time I ever met Kurt, and then after that, I'd met him at the house show in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So, if that answers your question, but never Lou Thesz before. No.
What do the people in amateur wrestling feel about Kurt Angle? Because I know at the beginning, I actually follow amateur fairly close, and I know at the beginning it was almost like when he first went into pro wrestling, it was like they just didn't even acknowledge it. It was like, and now all of a sudden, it's like everyone's like, oh wow, this is great.
Yeah. I mean, it's that old analogy, it's like jumping on the bandwagon. What could they say? What can they say now? Of course, they're going to say horrible things. I'm glad Kurt went and did what he did and has gotten to where he has gotten, because it made it easier on us amateur guys, a heck of a lot easier, to follow in his footsteps. But they can't say nothing about, stepping in and a year and a half later being the WWF champion. And I'm very happy for Kurt, and I think that it's great that somebody that knows the amateur people and the way of life, the amateur life, and can become a WWF champion. I think it's great. But as far as people talking down about him, now, of course they're not going to now, he's become successful at it, and they definitely were going to turn their backs on him if he wasn't successful. That's just the way people are, and I think it's great. I'm happy for Kurt.
He really changed a lot of minds because, I would say probably through the 60s, mid-60s, a lot of amateur wrestlers went into pro and were very successful, like Vern Gagne, Jack Briscoe, Dick Hutton, Ray Gunkel. I mean, there's just a little Danny Hodge. I mean, there's just one after Gorilla Monsoon, one after another. And then around in the mid-'60s, the mentality in pro wrestling was, for a lot of various different reasons, that amateur wrestlers didn't make good pros. And they kind of, and there were a few that came in. Steve Williams did pretty well, late Gary Albright, but very few, actually. And then Angle came in, and it opened the doors for you and Sylvester Turkai, who's also in Ohio Valley, and Shelton Benjamin, and just like, they really I think that it's just kind of interesting that one guy just coming in and being so successful is all of a sudden people are going like, maybe looking at like a top amateur. I mean, I know like with Jim Ross, I mean, his mentality is that if you're a top level amateur wrestler, that you're used to a lot of dedication and a lot of sacrifice without necessarily a lot of gain monetarily. And you're not going to cry about, your fingernail being broken. And you're basically going to be a tough guy if you can make it to that level. And he thinks that that's the kind of people that, in the WWF, it's a different kind of punishment. But, you got to be able to take pain and not cry about it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I think one thing that was very important for Jim Ross when I met with him was the fact that what you said, the amateur level people, no dedication. They have a lot of heart. They know what it is to be dedicated. They're not gonna cry over spilt milk. We're gonna compete no matter what. I mean, if my finger's broken, I'm gonna wrestle the next day, because that's a way of life for us. I mean, we didn't. If I tore my rotator cuff or if I subluxed my kneecap, I'm going to wrestle the next day. I'm going to try to wrestle, but I'm going to take a little time off if I need to, and I guarantee I'll be back on the mat in a week. I think that's the mental attitude that the amateur people have, and I think that was one of the things that Jim was pressing on when I met with him, was stating that the amateur people are very durable, and that's what we're looking for. So,
what are your other friends in the amateur world that have seen like the success of Kurt Angle and how much fun you're having, and just go, this is something that I want to do?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I look back and I think some days I take this job for granted because, where else can this is the perfect job. It's just amazing to me how I can just spend time in the weight room, spend time taking care of my body, spend time in the ring, throwing guys around, getting thrown around. It's the best job in the world. And I'm very thank God every day, and I thank the WWF for giving me this opportunity. So I'm enjoying myself.
Any specific names of people that you think could just be awesome?
I didn't understand you. Repeat yourself, please.
Oh, any specific names that that you think could do really good?
Oh, like any of the guys like at Minnesota or some college wrestlers that you've seen that you think might be suited for this?
Right now, as far as I think that Brandon Eggum, he wrestled 184 pounds for the University of Minnesota. I think he could do a very good job. There's a handful of guys in the Division I ranks that could have this opportunity, and this, that's top of my head right now. No, as you look in the heavyweight class this year, very young guys and very, very small heavyweights, which was wrestling this year. There was nobody out there that, the guy that won heavyweight was 235 pounds, versus, you got Stephen Neal or I myself or Kerry McCoy or the Tolly Thompsons, which were all, 260, 70-pound guys, so the heavyweight class this year was very small. The guy that replaced me, Garrett Lowney, which was a Greco-Roman, he placed third at the Olympic Games this year, is not a big guy. He's 225 pounds, 6 feet, 1, not very good, but, I could see a handful of guys, but who's to say? Who's to say that I'm going to be a good professional wrestler? I'm trying my damnedest, but who's to say that I'm going to be? So it's hard to say.
As an amateur wrestler, what are your thoughts of Cael Sanderson?
Oh wow, I got to spend a lot of time with Cale last summer, and I did quite a few camps with Cale. Talk about a nice guy. Talk about a very talented kid.
Humble too.
Very humble. Very humble. He's the nicest guy in the world. I couldn't ask for anybody more to carry all that weight on his shoulders, and he's going to do a wonderful job by doing it. Winning his third NCAA championship this year. Just a great guy. Hopefully, I'm pulling for him again next year. And to be a 4-time NCAA champion and go on and surpass Dan Gable, which I know that he could probably do.
I got a question. You're someone who's been through the top ranks of amateur wrestling for a couple of years. How difficult is it? Because to me, it seems like the idea that a guy could win 119 straight matches, it actually boggles my mind because, everyone's got a bad day. What if you have a little bit of the flu and you face a tough guy? He hasn't lost in 3 years. As a freshman, he didn't lose.
It's amazing. I went through college, and in 4 years of college, I lost, 14 times. And I didn't even wrestle Division I for 2 years. It was junior college. For this kid to go 119, 120, whatever it is, unbeaten, I have a lot of respect for the guy. Me being an amateur wrestler, that's amazing. I'm happy for the guy.
Let's start taking phone calls. We'll start with Harant in California. You're first up with Brock Lesnar.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Really good.
Hey.
First couple comments for Brock. One aspect that seems to hold true about amateur wrestlers is their dedication and their work ethic. And I think if you combine those two things that you have with that tremendous physique and all the wrestling talent and all the wrestling knowledge you have at Ohio Valley, I think it's going to be a matter of time before we see you as a player on TV. And I just wanted to let you know that even though we don't get to see you out here in California, you do have people that do appreciate what you are doing. And just wanted to tell you to keep going, man.
Hey, thanks a lot. That's good to hear. I appreciate it.
No problem. Second thing is actually for the show. You guys put the show on 10 hours a week, and honestly, to me, it's the 10 hours most entertaining of wrestling that I get a week.
Thanks.
I do listen to the Law, and I like the Law, but I think the show is just on a whole different level. And the knowledge
really?
we get...
I love doing the Law myself. So.
Yeah, the Law is such a fun show, and it's good to hear the Canadian aspect of it, too. But I just think this show is just on a different level. Now, I have a question for you, Dave. I think you might have covered this a couple of weeks ago, but my computer crashed right about when you guys are covering it, so just wanted to go ahead and ask you this. A couple of years ago, there was a segment on one of the Raws where it was actually November of '97, and it was one of the first DX segments, and it was when Sean and Hunter were doing a rib with bananas. Now, at that time, my friend told me an odd story that I don't know if you want me to bring up, but basically...
You don't have to bring them up, I'm sorry. But you don't have to bring them up, but that's probably the true story, the one you're thinking.
Did it involve Mr. Cornette?
I have always heard that, yes.
Okay.
It's not the one that involves Dave.
Okay,
no, not the one with the bananas. That's a different story.
In the picture, I was told, and I just want to clarify if that was true.
That's what I always heard, yes.
Okay. Well, guys, I just want to tell you guys how I basically felt about the show. And, Brock, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll hear from you guys again.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
All right, we're gonna go to John in Florida. John, how you doing today?
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Listen, I got a question to ask you. Is anything going to happen at WrestleMania that's supposed to happen with the WCW guys and the WWF guys?
Everything that's supposed to happen hopefully will happen. As far as with the WCW guys, I'm not sure. I think that they should. I think something should happen.
Because I think Wade Teller's full of shit. To be honest with you.
What's he saying?
What did he say?
He's got
you should hear him. Booker T's going to be in Shane's corner. He's going to challenge The Rock.
Maybe they'll do that. That wouldn't be the worst. That's not the worst idea in the world. They still got to make a lot of deals because right now, everyone's pretty much on hold. If they can make it'd be a good part of the show as far as, I have not heard of anything happening, but at the same time, I'm probably the person that they wouldn't tell that to first, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Listen until after the show. After the show, they'll tell me, but I don't think they'll tell me before.
If Linda wasn't going to be there in the wheelchair, I would think for sure that somebody would be in Shane's corner. But the fact that she's there, I don't know.
It almost distracts, because I think the big pop's Linda coming out, and if there's too many things going on, but then again, it's Vince's match, so there are going to be too many things going on, because there has to be. It's Vince, you know?
Is it true about Sting?
What about Sting?
They're reporting that he don't want to work for Vince, so he's going to retire.
I think that's a very good chance, yes. I mean, nothing's for sure. I mean, believe me, nothing's for sure, but I would not be surprised that that's not how that winds up. Sting's never really wanted to work there. He's expressed that. He's got a great contract that he could sit out on. I mean, retire is a funny word because, you know, when the contract's up in 10 months or a year, whenever Sting's contract's up, you know, by then he may want to work there, and they may want him a lot. You know, you never know where the business is going to be in a year. There may be a spot for, you know, someone that they need in a hurry. I mean, you just can't predict the future in wrestling.
What are these guys going to do when the money runs out at the end of their contract?
Then I think that either if they saved enough money, they may retire, or they'll go to work for Vince. They're not going to have much else. That's about it. What?
Nash said I don't need to work no more. I got plenty. I got millions.
He does have millions.
Yeah, Nash is too cool. You got to remember that, and Nash is never going to sell the fact that they don't want him. So if he thinks they don't want him, which seems to be the idea, he's going to make it out like he doesn't want them. I mean, that's just the way he's going to do it.
Yeah. Any truth to HHWF happening?
HHW. What, am I missing something?
Hulk Hogan's Wrestling Federation with
Yeah, I'm sure he's always talking to people who know the problem. You know, we talked about it all week. The problem's TV. I mean, there's enough talent out there to start a new company if you've got a great television time slot.
But I thought Rupert Murdoch wanted Hulk Hogan.
At times he did, but wrestling's got people see wrestling on the downslide, and the, you know, TV is not that, you know, these stations, obviously if Rupert Murdoch wanted wrestling that bad, Eric Bischoff would have a company would have a new company to be on Fox. Obviously he doesn't want it that bad because that hasn't happened.
What's
the fact that Vince is getting 11 o'clock time slot should tell you a lot.
Yeah, that's the other thing. In fact, Vince is getting 11 on TNN, which is a weak station. At the best, he's getting his 11 o'clock time slot. That tells you what the television. It's
Vince
the
of all people.
Vince, yeah, the advertising
on a station
community.
He saved.
Yeah, the advertising community is not hot on wrestling right now. It's just the reality of the situation.
What's the chances of all the guys sitting out their contracts and Vince not wanting it and selling it back and Eric buying it?
0%.
Why?
Vince is not selling this to anyone. Vince didn't buy away his competition to give someone a key back into the door.
You think it was a good idea? He's not going to build it up and then sell it.
Yeah.
What's the odds? Why did he buy it? I don't understand why.
To keep the competition away. As long as he's got the rights to these guys, actually, you know, as long as, you know, it keeps, you know, basically keeps the competition away. That's the reason. He's got it all. Plus, you know, hey, interpromotional, done right, interpromotional should make money.
All right, Dave, thanks.
You're very welcome. Plus, he's got all those, he's also got all those hours that if they ever want to do something, whether it's the internet or for, you know, for a 24-hour wrestling channel down the line, obviously it's not their plans right now, but there's all that tape someday could be worth a lot of money, maybe a lot more than $10 million or whatever it is that he paid for it. I do think, as a business deal, the amount he bought it for is a steal, unless he just botches it up, which, you know, he may, but I don't think he will.
I think $10 million's great just for the library alone.
Yeah, I know. So, and you know, whatever the name's worth, which isn't a whole lot right now, but could be if you rebuild it. Anyway, let's go to Rick in Connecticut. Rick, what's going on?
Hello, hi, how you doing, guys?
Hello.
Hey.
About WCW, is there any chance of the deal falling through because of antitrust issues or anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, until the final papers are signed, it's just like with a Fusion deal. I guess there's a chance, but I think the chance is pretty darn slim. Because, in fact, I would say almost say there's no chance
right now.
I would say there's no chance because the bottom line is they've already folded the company, and there's no other buyers, and you know, I would say no. I'd say that there's almost no chance that it's going to fall through.
But as far as antitrust, aren't they technically not a monopoly because of all the independents and you know, the other entertainment
that is
programs?
That's a very interesting case there. I would presume that somebody at some point will try to, you know, see if that's an antitrust thing. I could see that coming up. There are people who've talked to me about and I don't know enough about antitrust law, so I don't know if they are or they're not, but it is something that's come up, especially because they're going to have, what I would say would be exclusive arena rights to every major arena. The TV is something. They won't have a monopoly on television unless nobody. They'll have it, but it's not their fault. You can't blame them. There's other TV stations that just won't carry wrestling. I guess where that will come up is if someone tries to start something. If they do something illegal against them, they could be in trouble. But I think that to stifle it. But my feeling is they don't need to do that, and they won't do that. And I don't think that they're believe me, the people who run that company, as far as like Linda McMahon, they are much too smart to fall into a trap where that's going to be their undoing. So
it's not illegal to have a great product and good production and a TV deal.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the fact that nobody else.
The arena thing, that might be something there.
Yeah, but again, but
there are other arenas. It's not like they have every single arena in the entire U.S. all locked up.
Yeah, but it's not like there's somebody out there who's trying to book all these arenas that's being told no because of WWF. So it's like right now, I don't know what anyone would have to complain about.
What's your feeling as far as just as far as how this is going to affect wrestling and WCW? I know that I feel kind of sad in this because with WCW being not being on Turner anymore and not being on Monday night, it's kind of like the end of an era. How do you feel it's going to?
It's totally changed the business. I don't know how. I don't know, like 6 months or 18 months from now, I have no idea really what's going to happen. I don't think it's a good thing. I think that it's going to hurt wrestling in the long run. I think there may be one big pop coming up, and afterwards it's going to be hurting unless somebody comes in because, competition is what made this business, and I hate to not see the competition. It makes it's harder for everyone. It's harder for the athletes. If Brock turns into a total superstar, it'd be a lot better if there were two different companies for him to put his services, whether it's Brock or The Rock or anyone in this industry. It's a lot better to have two companies, that are competing with each other rather than one giant company.
Competition makes both individuals stronger, So it's definitely. Although I think Vince is going to do a very good job of controlling both companies.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think? I've heard talk that Vince might fold it after 2 years or whatever. Do you think he's going to try to keep it around for? He's going to try to keep it around permanently. WCW as a separate company.
I think inevitably it's going to end up folded and merging into one. I just think that that's just the but as far as the timetable, nobody knows because the market is going to determine that. It's when Vince will close WCW when people stop going to WCW or stop watching it on TV or it costs too much to produce it as a separate thing. As long as he's making money with WCW, he won't fold it. So the market is going to determine the time frame. It's not like Vince is going to go in and go, okay, this is 18 months and then I move on to something else. It's like this business, you can't even book more than a month ahead or you're going to be in trouble. So,
if 18 months down the road they're making $100,000 profit a year, that thing's not going anywhere.
Exactly.
I'm just hoping that maybe it'll be something like, the show becomes somewhat of a success. They move into a better time slot, and it convinces some network that maybe we should talk to Eric Bischoff. There's some guys out there. There's Kevin Nash and whoever else. Maybe we can start something up. Right now it's not going to happen, but I think that if things go really well, maybe there's a chance that it will happen.
The best thing, if wrestling, Brian's right. If wrestling gets on fire again because of this, this like Fox and all them, they will want a piece of the action at that point. Right now, everyone's going like wrestling's on the downslide. Why get into something on the downslide? So the market's going to determine everything, and then it's like one guy. It's like if Ted Turner was still in power at Time Warner, this still might not have happened. Or Jamie Kellner was in power, maybe they would have just said, no, we can't do the WWF deal. We'll give it to Bischoff because we don't want to lose wrestling on these stations. It's like you just don't know who's going to be in what position and what. It's all, there's so many different factors. It's hard to predict.
Mm-hmm. And finally, as far as what do you know about what as far as Scott Steiner or Goldberg, as far as how badly or how not badly Vince wants those two? Because it seems to me like like you need those guys in WCW in order for it to be successful, and as far as, I mean, like the next WrestleMania, as far as I can see right now, like a Goldberg and Steve Austin, or maybe even Scott Steiner in there would be a really big draw if those guys can stay healthy.
Done correctly. The thing is, I think Vince's feeling is he doesn't need anyone. I think, I don't know. I mean, I know that
Vince could make anybody into Scott Steiner or Goldberg. He can make his own person.
Yeah.
I think that's my opinion. I mean, he doesn't need somebody's success already and then to build off of it. I think, good to look at it, The Rock or Austin or all of his top talent. I mean, he doesn't need somebody and then. But that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I think. He's not going to go with the feeling that he needs them. I don't know what, again, they had a meeting. They don't want trouble in their locker room. That's a real major point there. And, there's different ways of looking at it. I mean, Steiner was in a bad environment, but he also did a lot of things that, they would never put up with. So, he's going to have 2 strikes against him if they take him, and he's going to have to behave, which he probably would because I think he knows what the game is. Goldberg, he's got $6 million on the table on his contract from WCW. Vince is not going to pay him that money guaranteed, and probably even if unless he's the main event at WrestleMania for 2 straight years, he's going to get that kind of money. So, Bill Goldberg will probably be better off sitting out. If Vince wants him bad enough, obviously he can make it worth his while, but that's up to Vince. Everything's up to Vince. The ball is in his court on every decision. If he wants Steiner, he'll have Steiner. If he wants Goldberg, he'll have Goldberg. And if he doesn't want him, he ain't going to have him. So, he's the only one who can answer that question for 100%.
How about Ric Flair?
I think that they'll do the right thing to keep Ric Flair. I think it's a good name to have. Certainly, if you have WCW, I think that you need to have Ric Flair at least for a transition period to get some of those fans over. I think Ric Flair is a very important name in the Carolinas, and it's not even just that because they can draw in the Carolinas. They don't need Ric Flair, but I think that they would want to do the right thing for Ric Flair. Yeah, and I expect Flair will wind up there. It's not 100% either, but I just expect that Ric Flair and Vince McMahon have always gotten along, so that's not really a problem.
Do you think there's any possibility of Ric Flair feuding with The Rock at some point or something like that, or is that?
I don't see it unless The Rock begs for it, in which case I think they would do it. If Brock or Hunter want it just because it's they're kind of like someone they grew up watching and just say, I really want to work a match with him just because I want to work a match with him, it'll happen. But I don't know that, Rick's 52 years old, and as much as we all love Rick, you can't take that away. That's just the reality. I watched him against Sting, and he's not the Ric Flair that he once was. You can't be when you're 52 and after, the thousands and thousands of matches that he's done.
Okay, I just have one last question. I read, is it true that Scott Steiner's an All-American, or?
Scott Steiner was, I think he took 4th or 6th in the NCAA tournament in '86 and at 190 pounds. He was I think he had a record, but yeah, he was an All-American in his senior year at University of Michigan. Rick Steiner was never an All-American, although he was a good heavyweight.
My final question this is my final question about Rick Steiner or Lex Luger. Is there any chance?
Pretty darn slim in both cases. I would think Lex Luger, I would think there's almost no chance.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
All right.
Take care.
Okay. Let's go to, is it Bill in Brooklyn?
Yeah. Hi, Mr. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you guys. The first question is for Mr. Lester.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you thinking of taking your talent to UFC?
No. Not even a thought in my mind about that. Not at all.
Right. And what about the WWF? Are you planning on,
That's the plan. WWF for sure.
Is that crossing your mind or anything like that?
Is what crossing my mind?
Are you planning on going to Vince or asking him to sign you on or whatever?
No, he's already signed to WWF.
I've already signed.
Wait. I'm so sorry, guys. I mean, this is my first time calling.
Yeah, he signed. He's got a developmental deal with WWF, and he's in Ohio Valley training for the WWF right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And the second question is for you, Dave. What's the deal here? What's the word on Bischoff? What's his status now? What has he actually said about anything?
Regarding what? He's very disappointed. I can tell you that.
Yeah, what is he doing now?
I don't really know. I mean, he's very disappointed because he didn't expect it to turn out like this. I will tell you that they had always figured that if they didn't get WCW, they would start their own company. The idea that the TV networks would have no interest in wrestling was something that they didn't even realize until the last 2 weeks, and it hit them like a ton of bricks, and he's very disappointed. I mean, the losing of the WCW deal to Vince is like 2% of the disappointment. It's the inability to get television at this time for anyone, which is the 98%. That's the real big story. Vince buying the company is a big story too, but the Turner networks canceling wrestling is a much bigger story. Right. And the fact that these other networks don't want wrestling, that's even bigger. Those are the real stories here.
Well, do you think Vince would hire Bischoff to handle the WCW?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely no chance.
Okay, and
run it from a management position or just like an on-screen character?
There's a chance on-screen character, there's a chance. I wouldn't rule that one out, but as far as I wouldn't expect it. But as far as running this from a management perspective, there is no chance.
Okay, and what about Goldberg? You said something earlier there about Goldberg. I overheard. What's his?
I expect Goldberg to. No one knows because it's up to. If Vince makes an offer and wants him, Vince can get him. But my impression is that Goldberg. I think it's more likely Goldberg's going to be sitting out. I don't know if we'll see as far as Bill Goldberg in wrestling. I mean, it's going to be an amazing story of this guy who was this unbelievable, phenomenon in 1998, and here it is 2001. I mean, ever since the end of 1998, his career has just gone. Boy, that's a story. The career of Bill Goldberg in wrestling.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an amazing story. When he came through in 98, who would have ever thought that he would have never done anything after 98 in wrestling, that he would, between the injuries and the bad booking, and then this buyout, it's like this career.
That's another thing people have to look at too. Is like a guy like Ric Flair. Ric Flair's been handled very, very badly at times, and he's done all right. But with Goldberg, he's a guy that if he's not handled perfectly, it's real bad news. So.
Right. Okay. So one last question, guys. Do you think, somewhere down the road, that Vince McMahon would give up the WCW for sale? He would let somebody else buy it?
No. It's going to be with him, and then when it's no longer profitable, it will cease to exist. It's not like he's going to sell it off. No, unless, you can never say never, but not at this time.
And what will he really sell anyway? He's not going to sell a profitable company. He's not going to sell the library back.
When it gets better, Fox or might want to purchase it from him.
Oh, but if it's profitable, why would he want to sell it?
Well, you got a good point there.
He's either gonna fold it, or he's gonna keep it forever. And what's gonna end up happening is if it's not doing well, he's gonna merge the good talent into the WWF, and that's the inevitability. That is what's gonna happen. Whether it may be 5 years from now, and it may be 9 months from now, it's all gonna end up merging into one at some point. That's the WCW name will not be around forever. Well, it won't be around. It's not gonna be around in 4 years or 5 years, I don't think, unless. Because you can't keep the feud going forever. At some point, the people are going to get tired of the feud. They're going to have to move on to something else. And at that point, he's going to have to just, merge the companies.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. I love your show.
This is from Dave Galvin. This is about something that we talked about. It goes, from what I've been researching in my coverage of the Microsoft trial, it is not illegal to have a monopoly if you happen to purchase your competition by being inventive or by being in the right place at the right time. What is illegal is if you were to use your monopoly to keep a monopoly, or if you were to use it to gain a monopoly in another area, such as Microsoft telling computer manufacturers that if they wanted Windows 95, they couldn't have Netscape Navigator on their machines. Microsoft was trying to push their own Internet Explorer. That's what got them in trouble. I think that whatever it is, I think that the WWF doesn't need to be involved in any. the nature of being in wrestling, and Vince McMahon grew up in the wrestling business, is to, what's the word? To engage in
anti-competition by the throat and squeeze.
Stab him in the back and do everything to him. Now, but he is so much higher than all this competition that he really doesn't even need to worry about that. And that's why I don't see him getting into trouble because, let's just say XPW gets, I don't know, some television somewhere and wants to book things. For Vince to why even waste his time? I mean, he's got all this stuff that he's got to do, plus the XFL if that thing keeps going. So it's just one of those things where I don't see them falling in that trap, but I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, let's get to as many phone calls as we can in our remaining minutes. Starting with Jay in New York. Jay, what's going on?
Nothing much. My question is, do you think that Eric Bischoff was actually capable of running the WCW?
In what sense? Do I think he was capable? He did a great job with it, and then he did a horrible job with it. So he's capable in both. He's been both capable and incapable. As far as for the future, I would have guessed that it would not succeed ultimately, but I wouldn't bet my house on it not succeeding. I know that they had a lot of good ideas on the table, and they had a whole bunch of new people they were going to bring in for different positions, and we were going to have a fresh approach, and maybe it would have worked, and maybe it wouldn't. You don't know for sure. You never got the chance to do the deal.
Okay, my last question is, what do you think the odds of Goldberg versus Stone Cold Steve Austin are?
Whatever Vince wants him to be. If Vince wants the match, it's going to happen. It's funny. Everyone keeps asking about that. If Vince wants it bad enough, he can make money with it, but he'll also upset the salary structure of his company, and it's his decision on whether he's going to do that. And based on the information I've been told, and of course they could change their mind on a dime, it's not going to happen. But again, it could, they could change. As I said, they could change their mind tomorrow, and it will happen, and they'll just make Goldberg the right offer, and he'll come.
And how is Goldberg getting the injuries? How bad are they? Are they?
Well, he had a torn rotator cuff. He had a torn rotator cuff.
Talking about? He punched through a window.
Yeah, that was real bad. He nearly lost his arm off of that one, and the torn rotator cuff. It's it's an injury you get in sports.
Yeah.
So.
Are they career-threatening, most of them, or?
When he punched through the window, he could have lost his arm. If you lost your arm, it's career-ending. The rotator cuff, everyone, I don't say everyone in wrestling, but many, many people in wrestling have had the rotator cuff. They've had the surgery. They've come back pretty much the same. Flair had it a couple of times. Billy Gunn had it. Who else has had the torn rotator cuff? Well, Billy Gunn didn't come back as good, but what can I say?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go to Heath in St. Louis. Heath, what's going on?
Hey, Dave. I got a couple of things for you. I got a couple of questions, actually. First of all, with the gimmick battle royal, with the new acquisition of WCW, what's the chances of us seeing the Red Rooster?
It's up to them. I would say if somebody, again, this is one of those things, if you were in that meeting, that writers meeting, and you said, hey, let's bring in the Red Rooster, I'll bet you it would happen. But if you're not in that meeting and nobody thought of it, then it probably won't happen. But yeah, they could get him, and Terry Taylor's in good enough shape. He's going to be in better shape than some of those guys that are in there. That's for sure.
And
Sheik, my God.
With along the same line with that battle royal, with the gobbledygooker, obviously someone's going to be inside it, and
yes.
Obviously something that's going to be where everybody's going to be like, there you go. Wouldn't it be more or less like Pete Rose? I mean,
everybody thinks that,
right?
And it may be,
but
maybe there, and maybe in the hardcore match. I just think he's going to win that hardcore title.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you were writing, he would.
I don't know about that, but
oh no, you would come up with the idea and go, hey, this was a really dumb idea. Let's not do it now. And they're going to go,
I'd have an idea. Let's not use.
But and the final thing is with WCW with the late, with the like we basically said, it's not a very good time to have it on there. And one of the best things I would have thought of that you could possibly do with something like that was with Paul E. and basically you have the ECW roster under contract, and if not, it's not going to take much to get them on that contract. Why can you not basically put the ECW talent with Paul E. run it under WCW's name on something late night, see what it can do with that, and then bring in guys such as like Brock and whoever else from the, OVW.
Well, I mean, they'll bring.
You mean have an ECW show?
Yeah, like with under the WCW logo. I mean, it's got name recognition, but now everybody's saying, they're getting, they're seeing ECW. And then this also, a good stepping stone.
Okay,
Maybe
well,
here's
the thing. ECW was on TNN and it failed.
Right.
Vince is not gonna put something on that failed already, right. And it failed in a much better time slot than 11 p.m. on Saturday night.
True. But Vince didn't have his finger on it. I mean, now.
No, you're right. You're right. He didn't. But the WCW name is still way more valuable than the ECW name. I mean, as far as I expect that there will be some ECW talent thrown into that mix. Mm-hmm. As far as who runs it, if it hasn't been decided, I'm of the impression that Heyman will not be heavily involved in that thing. But if they make the decision to make him, then he will. But that's again, all this stuff is stuff that still needs to be worked out. I mean, I've been given impressions of things, but this can all change on everything that I've been told, and I've been told a lot, can all change.
But what was the main objective bringing Heyman in? I mean, I understand to take over Lawler's.
He's got a great booking mind. He really does. He's just, and he's got a great booking mind.
Oh yes, he
does.
A
great creative mind, and that's the objective. And he needed a job.
They were interested long before Lawler was gone too. Yeah. It wasn't like Lawler left on a Tuesday afternoon and they went, isn't there a guy named Paul Heyman that used to run a company that we might be able to get a hands on?
They'd been talking to Heyman for months and months. The deal was 80% done a long time ago. When they realized that Paul wasn't going to be able to make it, and Paul's decision was, what Paul was doing, he was stalling out going there, hoping that the miracle would happen, and the miracle didn't happen. And, I talked to him about, he was the first one who told me, and, he didn't, and his timing wasn't quite right, okay? He did expect the TBS, one of the things, because I was talking about it, is okay, why don't you just sit it out for 6 months, okay? And this is not like advice to him. We talked about everything that was going on in wrestling. But it was okay, what about the idea of sitting out for 6 months? If Bischoff succeeds, you can always go to Vince. Or to Bischoff, because he's got a great creative mind, even though Bischoff and Paulie don't get along at all.
Right.
Or if Bischoff fails, you start something up and you go on those Turner stations. That's great time slots. I mean, with those time slots, you can maybe do something. And his thing is they're going to cancel. If Bischoff fails, okay, they're going to cancel that wrestling on that time slot. I won't have that opportunity. And he, the way he saw the landscape, he played his cards where I got to go to Vince. I have no other alternative. And that's what he did. And he was righter than he thought he was at the time.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. And I like your show. I mean, love it. So, and Brock, keep up the good work, man.
Hey, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to John in California. John, what's up?
Gentlemen, how you doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Hey.
Dave, I'm heading up to WrestleMania this weekend. Gonna do the meet and greet, and I know how you've always said you don't call, let's say, Mitty and Dennis Knight because he's known as Tex and stuff like that. These are people I have admired all my life. What are some do's and don'ts of a meet and greet without me falling?
You've admired Mitty in all your life?
I'm sorry?
You've admired Mitty in all your life?
Oh yeah, no, but you know what I mean.
Okay.
No, just be nice. Don't try to be when you meet a wrestler, don't try to be a smart ass and try to pretend that hey, I'm smart, I know something, because that's turn off number one. Just be nice and just go, how's your kids? Or I don't know. Just be friendly. There's some guys in every profession who are dicks, but most people in wrestling, if you're nice to them, they'll be nice to you back.
I've heard some meet and greets are really bad, like Crash Holly and Big Boss Man. You think that
really
they'll go all out on
this it may be the day or whatever. There's, some. I don't know. I mean,
even the nicest guy has a bad day, so
yeah.
Just say hi.
Never know. They may have a problem with their girlfriend that day. I mean, there's weird things that they're all human beings, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know of I couldn't tell you who's everyone that I meet in wrestling. They're usually pretty nice. There's some that aren't. What can you say?
All right, gentlemen, take care. Have a good weekend.
Okay, let's go to is it Chris in Virginia?
Yes, it is.
Yes, Chris, how are you?
I'm fine, how are you? My first question is to Brock, Mr. Lesnar.
Yeah.
I was wondering, who would you like to work with in the WWF?
Who would I like to work with?
Yeah.
I would like to work with anybody that I get the opportunity to work with, but I think I'd like to work with Kurt Angle, and the mastermind, Steve Austin, would be great. Undertaker, anybody. I I wouldn't deny anybody. I would be more than happy to work with anybody, any of the stars up there. You know.
Did you get a chance to meet Austin when he came to Louisville?
Yeah, very nice guy. But I mean, you know, it wouldn't bother me. I would work with whoever. China, I don't care.
Whoa.
Oh, I don't know about that one. I'm cringing when you brought that one up.
Also, but, no, I have no problem working with anybody, you know. But I think the person that I would really like to work with would be Kurt, probably, just because of his amateur background and me, you know, both of us being shooters and amateurs. I think it'd be great to work with Kurt.
Have you wrestled Sylvester Terkay since you've been there?
Yes, yeah. Yes, I have.
Any thoughts as far as that went, or?
Per se, what are you?
I don't know. I mean, just both being NCAA champions. I mean, did you do a lot of amateur, like in your match, or was it just, or did you just try to both? When
I first got down here, we did a lot of amateur, but now, I mean, the WWF knows that I was a good amateur wrestler, and I'm trying to become a professional wrestler, so I need to adapt to become a professional wrestler, you know. So we do. Actually, I've worked with Sylvester quite a bit, and the matches have become more professional.
Mm-hmm.
Professional wrestling.
The first time I saw you wrestle, it was probably your first television match. You did a suplex. I think it was a Jerome Crony, but I could be wrong of the guy. It was a smaller guy. And it was like a double arm suplex, and he rotated in midair. It was like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Yeah, now what, was that your idea, or did he just come up with this idea? Because I was looking at this going this is I've never seen anything like this before.
That was Jim Cornette's idea for me to come in and give him a double arm suplex, but I gave it with a little more authority than I should have.
You know, you weren't used to throwing around guys that were that small, are you?
No, that was I just saw Crony last night work, you know, and we laugh about it every time we see each other.
So that spot wasn't planned then. It just happened?
Yeah, it just happened that way.
Oh, because I saw that and I'm going now that was impressive.
It just happened that way.
Al, are there any calls on the line? No more calls. Okay, let's run to a couple of emails real quick. We got just a couple minutes left in the show. Let's see. Explain to me this. If WCW is only offering 30 cents on the dollar and guys like Nash and Goldberg are going to sit out their contracts, why isn't Time Warner up there offered 50 cents on the dollar to save them money? Actually, that would cost them money. Oh, no, it would save them money in the long run, yeah. And then the wrestlers like Goldberg might be more inclined to go to the WWF. They may. This is all stuff that needs to be worked out. I mean, again, nobody, like Nash and Goldberg, have not heard from Time Warner. I mean, the 30 cents on a dollar is stuff that has come out, and it probably is true, but they have not actually made those offers to Goldberg or Nash, and Vince has not made any offers.
I don't think any of the top names have been talked about yet as far as the buyout.
No, none of them have. I mean, I can't say none because I don't know everyone, but none that I've talked to have, and none have gotten, bona fide this kind of offer from Vince. And until those two things happen, they can't even make a decision. You know, it's like guys that have talked today. I mean, it's like Nash has gone public because Nash has this idea of what's going to happen. Plus, he knows they don't want him. Goldberg and Sting, have their own minds, but most of the guys whether DDP, Booker T, Ric Flair, all of those guys, I mean, they got to hear from both sides and then figure out exactly what's in their best financial interest. And since they haven't heard from either side, there's really, when you talk about a decision, I mean, they don't even have the facts to make the decision, let alone have made the decision.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is,
one of the things that I've learned in being so green in this business in 7 months is never say never. Anything is possible in this business, and it just goes to prove that.
Sure.
In the past 2 weeks now that anything can happen.
What was the thoughts at camp when the word kind of got out that WWF was buying WCW? I mean, I know none of you guys are really affiliated with WCW at all. But, I mean, did anyone talk about it, or was it just sort of like, well,
there's been a lot of changes down here as well. I mean, we lost, there's been some developmental guys, that, are, I think, down here that are going to be losing their contracts.
Has anyone done that yet, or is that just like kind of the rumors you've heard?
That's just some of the rumors that I've heard. I think, I think Ross mentioned it in the report. The Raw.
But that was before. That was before.
The Raw report is going to state this week, I think, who is being released.
Yeah, but those decisions were made before this buyout because they were going to cut. They were thinking of cutting some of the developmental guys they didn't think were going to make it. That was decision was probably made about 4 weeks ago. I'm thinking.
But I don't think that the buyout really helped them guys out any either. So.
Yeah, I agree because now they have so many people under contract and. Yeah.
I don't know if it's good or bad for me, or the same as the guys down here. I have no idea, But like I said, only thing that we can do down here is just keep doing our job and try to do it the best we can.
What's as far as is there any reason why like Shelton has really, he's really caught on and his acrobatics are pretty spectacular. Was he a guy when he was an amateur wrestler who was acrobatic? I guess he really don't do flips or nothing in amateur wrestling, but certainly with the what's the word I'm looking for, the agility, dexterity. Yeah. Was he known for that in amateur?
He was known for his speed and agility, yeah. But I think what helps Shelton out a lot is he's watched it since he was a young kid, and he pretty much the guy can do anything. All he has to do is see somebody do it, or he just sits at home and plays his video games, and he gets ideas off of his video games. He a lot of watching the sport of wrestling and video games is really I think what attributes his talent.
Do they give you a lot of tapes to watch down there too?
Yeah, we watch. We have tapes that we would have to watch, training tapes and so on, and Cornette gives us a tape every couple of weeks to watch of old school wrestling and the matches that happened long ago. Good psychology matches, but
where did you get the idea of doing the Shooting Star Press on that show?
We were in practice one day, and me and Shelton are very competitive, and everything that Shelton does, I tried to do, and pretty much I can do everything that he can do. And one day he was trying to do the Shooting Star Press, and he couldn't do it, and I got up there the next day, and I just did it. And this was in practice. And everybody was like, and I was like, whoa, I can't believe I just did that, and so I kept practicing it, and actually it was Shelton's idea and then Danny Davis's idea of that we should incorporate that into the match, and so it was one of those things where like, yeah, I'll do it, and I did it 300 times on the crash pad, and then I had guys laying down for me, and I hit it every time, so I felt safe doing it, and my opponents feel safe taking it. So I think it was Shelton's idea, pretty much.
Brock, we're totally out of time. I want to thank you very much for doing the show, and I want to wish you the best of luck in your training. And hopefully we'll see you in the WWF before too long, and you'll have a successful career in pro as you did in amateur.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, you guys. I greatly appreciate it.
Okay, you're very welcome. And Brian, thanks, of course, for being here, and Al. Thanks again, and we will see everybody tomorrow at 5. We're going to have Daryl Peterson, who was also a heck of an amateur wrestler before he became a pro wrestler, as Max Payne, and we'll be taking your phone calls and emails on the news that everyone wants to talk about tomorrow as well. And, of course, don't forget Sunday right after Mania, and we'll see you tomorrow at 5.